There are moments in history when a single person stands at the intersection of talent and injustice and refuses to move. When the full force of what a human being can do meets the full force of what a society will not allow, and the collision produces something that the culture cannot forget, even when it would prefer to. Dorothy Dandridge stood at that intersection for her entire professional life. The talent was extraordinary. The injustice was structural and relentless, and ultimately fatal. What she produced in the space between them was a legacy so significant that it took the industry she worked in decades to acknowledge what she had done and what she had cost. Dorothy Jean Dandridge was born on November 9, 1922, in Cleveland, Ohio, the second daughter of Ruby Dandridge, an actress and comedian, and Cyril Dandridge, who left the family before Dorothy was old enough to remember him. Ruby was ambitious for her daughters in the specific way of a woman who has talent herself, and who understands that the doors available to her daughters might be slightly more open than the doors that had been available to her, and who is willing to push those daughters through whatever opening exists with whatever force is necessary. Dorothy and her sister Vivian performed as the Wonder Children, touring the black entertainment circuit, and Dorothy learned the discipline and the craft of performance the way she learned most things, not in a classroom, but in the room where the work was actually done. She was beautiful, with a specific, almost incandescent quality that the camera found in a way it finds very few faces. The kind of beauty that is not simply visual, but expressive, that communicates something about the interior life of the person rather than simply the structure of the exterior. She could sing with a warmth and a sophistication that placed her in the tradition of the great nightclub performers. Lena Horne, Eartha Kitt, the women who made the intimate venue into a space for genuine art. She could dance with the ease of someone who had been dancing since childhood. She could act with a rawness and a specificity that directors who worked with her recognized as the real thing, the quality that no coaching produces and that the camera transmits without distortion. Hollywood in the 1940s and early 1950s did not know what to do with her. The roles available to black actresses in that era existed in a range so narrow that calling it a range is misleading. Maid, servant, background figure, occasionally the exotic other, and none of them were equal to what Dorothy Dandridge actually was. She took what was available and elevated it, the way great performers always elevate insufficient material, and she built a reputation and a following that the industry could not entirely ignore, even as it continued to offer her material that did not deserve her. Carmen Jones in 1954 was the breakthrough, and the proof, and the nomination, and the evidence that the industry had been wasting what it had been given. Otto Preminger's all-black musical adaptation of Bizet's opera gave her Carmen, the most dangerous and most desirable woman in any room she entered, the woman whose freedom was the thing that made her irresistible, and that made her inevitable destruction, the thing that made the story tragic. Dandridge played her with a physical and emotional completeness that the screen had not previously seen from a black actress in a leading role of this scope and this ambition. She was Carmen Jones. She inhabited the character so fully that the distinction between actress and role became, for the duration of the film, essentially theoretical. She became the first black woman nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress. The nomination was real and was historic and was received with the recognition of everyone in the industry who had been paying attention. She did not win. She lost to Grace Kelly for The Country Girl in a year when the competition was genuine, and the result was not a statement of comparative worth, but of the specific mathematics of Academy voting. But the nomination itself was a statement, a public acknowledgement by the most powerful institution in American cinema that Dorothy Dandridge had done something of the highest order and that the achievement could not be ignored. The industry ignored it anyway, The roles that should have followed the nomination, the leading roles, the serious projects, the material worthy of the talent the nomination had officially recognized, did not come. The segregated world of mid-1950s Hollywood found itself in the specific, awkward position of an industry that had acknowledged a black actress as one of the finest in the world, and that simultaneously had no idea how to use her, because the stories it told were not, by default, stories that included women who looked like her in roles that mattered. She was offered exotic temptresses and tragic figures, and the occasional prestige project that was more interested in the statement it was making about race than in telling a story that required Dorothy Dandridge's specific gifts. She performed in nightclubs at the highest level, the Waldorf Astoria, the Riviera in Las Vegas, the major venues of the international circuit. And she was frequently, at those same venues, barred from using the facilities that other headliners used as a matter of course. She could perform for the audience. She could not stay in the hotel. She could entertain the guests. She could not eat with them afterward. The specific cruelty of this, the willingness to take what a black artist could provide while refusing to extend the basic dignities of personhood, was experienced by Dorothy Dandridge, not abstractly, but concretely, in hotels and casinos and restaurants across America, throughout the years of her greatest fame. Her personal life carried its own weight. Her first marriage, to the dancer Harold Nicholas, ended in divorce after the birth of their daughter Harolyn, who was born with a brain injury that required specialized care, and that would require that care for the rest of her life. Dorothy devoted enormous resources, emotional and financial, to ensuring that Harolyn received the best available treatment, and the financial strain of this, combined with the financial mismanagement of the people she trusted to handle her money, left her in circumstances that the fame of the 1950s had not suggested were possible. Her second marriage, to the restaurant owner Jack Dennison, was a disaster of a different kind. A man who controlled her finances, isolated her from her professional contacts, and left her, when the marriage ended, in a financial position that amounted to ruin. She was filing for bankruptcy in the final months of her life, the money from the years of headlining performances and the film work and the nightclub engagements gone, managed away by people she had trusted. She died on September 8, 1965, in West Hollywood, at the age of 42. The cause was an accidental overdose of an antidepressant. She had been preparing for a comeback, new projects, a new chapter, the possibility of reclaiming the career that the industry and the personal circumstances had diminished. She was 42 years old, and she had been fighting for 38 of those years. She left behind Carmen Jones, and the nomination, and the legacy, the specific, permanent fact of having been the first, having done what had not been done, having stood at the intersection of talent and injustice, and refused to move, even when the refusal cost everything. Every black actress who followed her into a leading role in a major film walked through a door that Dorothy Dandridge had not opened exactly, but had stood in front of, so completely and so beautifully that the industry eventually had to acknowledge the door was there. She was the tragic pioneer. The word tragic is accurate. So is the word pioneer. The word that matters most, though, is the one that gets said last. She was first.